Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Chaotic Entertainment. I'm your host, Dan, and today I'd like to give a quick review of the remake of Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is widely known as the most popular title in the franchise, and it's pretty easy to see why. It was probably one of my favorite games of all time as a kid, and it was actually the first game in the series that I ever beat. When I was young, I just didn't understand the fixed camera angles or the tank controls of the older titles. My brain was empty, and there weren't any wrinkles to be seen anywhere. It wasn't until they jammed that camera behind Leon's shoulder that I was really able to get what was going on. This was also the start of Resident Evil's distinct art style and visuals. Not only were the controls modernized, but the voice acting went from bad and campy to...
Thanks. That should keep me company, 'cause boredom kills me.
well, just campy. It also completely redefined the tone and the style of the franchise, shifting things from survival horror to action with horror elements. On the bright side, this made it one of the funnest and most beloved games of all time. On the downside, it allowed for the birth of this fucking abomination. But since remakes seem to be the current trend, Capcom decided to dust off one of their most successful antiques and give it a nice facelift. And I'm happy to say the reviews are right. This game is a fucking gem. Which isn't surprising considering how solid of a foundation they had to work with. You'd almost have to go out of your way to ruin a game like this. Don't get me wrong though, they've done it before. The remake of Resident Evil 2 was a blessed miracle, and the remake of 3 was the fermented afterbirth that came spraying out afterwards. But luckily, this game is the nurse coming in and scrubbing everything down and setting things straight again. Let's start with the biggest overhaul, the mechanics. Leon still runs like he just had a cavity search, but he's extremely mobile in this game. Most of the QuickTime events were cut out like the tumor they were. You don't have these long 40-second cutscenes that'll kill you if you put your controller down. Combat now has blocks and counters that reward fast reflexes, and they can help you save on ammo. Knives have durability, but they can be fixed for dirt cheap at the merchant. They also work for stealth takedowns or killing enemies who are in the process of transforming. As for the guns, they're extremely satisfying to use. Every shot feels like it has some weight to it, and when you get good enough to land headshots without aiming, the game becomes a power trip. Especially after you upgrade your weapons. Despite this, I'd say this version of the game is actually harder than the original. Recoil matters now, and stronger enemies are way harder to stun. Hitboxes have been tightened up, and the chainsaw boys are actually terrifying now, especially on the harder difficulties. In the earlier stages, ammo quickly becomes a distant memory whenever you hear a chainsaw rev up. The game's upgrade system remains largely unchanged, while the treasure system is very different. You now have two currencies, arcade tokens and tiny gemstones. Pesetas are dropped by enemies, and they're found more or less everywhere. You get them when you sell things, kill monsters, wipe without getting anything on your hands. This game will just yeet money at you. Spinels, I don't know how to pronounce that word, are a little bit different. You only get these as treasures, rare drops, or by completing contracts. We'll come back to those in a second. Some things can only be bought with spinels. Certain treasures, maps, special weapons, nothing you can't live without, but certainly things you'll want, especially if it's your first playthrough. The second biggest change has to be this game's graphics. If you've seen the remakes of 2 and 3, then it won't come as a shock to you that this game looks absolutely gorgeous. The character models are fantastic. I know people have complained that Ashley looks like a burnt-out Karen in her 40s, but I don't think that's a mistake. They just made her look like the insufferable burden that she really is. Don't think of it as a downgrade. Think of it as making the outside match the inside. Overall, this game is great, and if you've seen my other reviews, you'll know what part of the video comes next. My criticisms. And I have a few. This game gets it right 9 out of 10 times, but those rare misses range from mildly frustrating to extremely goddamn annoying. Let's start with my biggest gripe, the side missions. Most of the side missions are okay, but there are some that are just awful. Anytime you get a contract to hunt down a stronger enemy, just know you're off to go waste about 10 to 15 minutes of your time. The strong enemies are never really unique enough to be interesting. Picture the enemies you've already been fighting, and then give them no new mechanics and about 10 times the health. Adjust the color slider on them, and BAM! Those are your strong enemy contracts. It gets even worse when you realize you have to make a fucking detour to go get them. I cleared all of them, and out of all of those fights, I enjoyed none of them. And the rewards for them are nowhere near the resources you'll spend putting them down. The other contracts are things like find hidden rats or give the merchant all the snakes in your trousers. I feel like these were added to pad out the game, and at times it shows. Are they the worst thing ever? No, but they certainly don't improve the game. Then there is one big change. One change that I find absolutely appalling and unforgivable. And you might think, with all the Twitter drama right now, that it's Ada's voice actress, but no, it's not. She's a bit lackluster, but no, she's not what makes me the angriest. The worst change, in my opinion, is Krauser.
You think I'm doing all this for revenge?
Look how they massacred my boy.
What did they do to this poor man? Every time you saw Krauser in the original, you knew he was a bigger, scarier, meaner version of Leon. He was your character on steroids, literally. He had a badass voice, he was imposing, and he was exactly the type of villain a game like Resident Evil 4 deserved to have.
Leave Ashley out of this. Oh, I needed her to buy Sadler's trust in me. Like you, I'm American.
So how is he in the remake?
You're too soft to do what's necessary. That's the difference between you and me, Rookie.
Capcom, I love you guys. I really do. I love that you manage the 5 steps forward, 1 step back balance. I really appreciate it. I just wish you'd stop shitting your pants on step 3 every now and then. Every time Krauser talks, I want to snort fucking bleach powder.
This is it, soldier!
I don't know how you can take a character this awesome and make me want nothing to do with him. He looks like he sniffs the weight benches at Planet Fitness. He's that guy, that one guy we all met in college, that one asshole who went into the ROTC program, dropped out halfway through, then still kept wearing the uniform around town because he peaked at the ripe old age of 7. His dialogue sounds like every sociology major I've ever met, specifically the ones who still live with their parents.
The most important thing in this world is pure, unadulterated power.
His boss fights are fine, and I definitely like it better than the annoying scripted QTE cutscene, but man, I feel like they did this boy dirty. But otherwise, this game, I can't recommend it enough. My only issue with giving it such praise is I'm tired of all the latest smash hits being either remakes or spiritual successors. The gaming industry is an absolute mess right now, and I'm really starting to worry it's doing everything it can to be like the movie industry. Regardless, Resident Evil 4, it gets a positive review from me. Worth the money, no problem. Go murder entire villages of plague victims. Get the girl and laugh at her for being a simp. And when you give me back my mercenaries, Capcom, they better be fucking free. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel. A huge thanks to my backers on Patreon. You guys really do make this possible. More content on the way, so stay tuned. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all next time.